Okay, we will go ahead and get started. The hour of 6 o'clock is upon us. We appreciate you all for being here again this evening, those that were here with us last night as well. So it is August 20th, 2024. This is a special city council meeting. So this is, the reason we're having this is for our final budget for its approval. These dates were set several months ago. State code is very clear that once you set those dates, you cannot change them. We did change the dates of our regular scheduled city council meeting since that time to move to Mondays. Otherwise, this would have been heard last night if we could have changed it, but again, we could not. And it does make sense to make sure that the public's aware of those dates and they're not being changed for their ability to come in and testify if they so desire. So with that, we'll jump right in. So we just have 3 new business items before us this evening. Again, this is for consideration of the budget. As you know, we've been working through this for several months. Lots of workshops, public outreach, things of that nature, public hearings, and so this is the end of the road, and so we appreciate that. Yes, that's probably a good idea. So, Madam Clerk, should we call roll? Maybe I'll go ahead and do it since she's busy grabbing the sheet. So no rush at all. So yeah, Councilor Doty.
I am here.
Is here. Councilor Stoddick.
I am here.
Councilor Register.
Here.
Councilor Williams.
Here.
Councilor Allgood.
Here.
And Councilor Dittenberg.
Here.
Almost put Dittenberg in front of you, so very good. So I hope you don't mind that, Debbie. We'll go ahead and get that. So everybody is here, present, and accounted for. And at the moment, all awake and alert. So, okay, with that, we'll turn it over to you, Raylyn.
Awesome, thank you. I just want to say, I feel like we've discussed this budget thoroughly with all the different workshops. So I won't be too detailed in my comments, but if you do have questions, just let me know. The budget book is posted online on the city's website for the entire budget. So if people have questions, there is budget numbers there as well. So within this budget, what's presented before you is a balanced budget. From between now, or May and now, there's been quite a few changes discussed, as you know. And so some of those changes are the original position request of over 40 positions. There's now 21 new positions, and several part-time positions were pulled. There was a 5% reduction in the travel budgets across all departments. There is a budgeted 3% COLA for personnel. There's a budgeted increase in PERSI due to the state PERSI increases. There's a ICRIMP increase. There's the attorney contract increase. There's some reorganizations, such as facilities and CUC moving under Public Works. For police, the SRO positions, they're still in the budget for the 4 positions. However, they are not funded unless we get a contract from the Caldwell School District. They will remain vacant for the entire fiscal year unless that contract is received. And I know that there's a couple of things in work, so if we do receive a contract, we would do a budget amendment that you would see before for you. So. And then next fiscal year, they wouldn't be requested as new positions, they'd just be funded. So I just want to give you that clarification. This budget also includes a negotiated pay raise for fire union employees and an increase above 3% COLA for the fire admin employees. It also includes longevity for fire prevention and fire admin, which they have not had before for their specific Caldwell Fire service. In capital, there's 21 new vehicles across all departments that's being requested. So I just want to highlight those. There's 2 new proposed parks, replacement of playground equipment at 2 of the other parks, as well as additional work on pathways and sidewalks. There's a specific line item for graffiti and hopefully a new campaign coming out to tackle what's currently out there. Some of the bigger capital projects include the Farmway project, which replaces water, sewer, and street out on Farmway. And then some of the future planning projects or similar to the U-Stick interchange justification report. For total transfers, because I know they were a big deal last year, I just want to identify what the transfers from general fund are this year. There's $1 million to police capital for police cars. There's $150,000 for the quiet zone project to streets, only if it is needed, because they are doing that study internally. $262,197 to the CEC fund to balance that, and then $32,700 to the parking fund. As we talked last month about foregone, so this budget does include the addition of the $290,000 for foregone, and so that was split between police and fire, and to cover their new positions in their maintenance and operations. So that's just kind of a general overview, but I can talk about my PowerPoint now. So with property tax, as you can see, the total property tax is at $29,080,020, and that includes that foregone amount. And then there's an additional property tax replacement of $253,919, which we don't levy, but it is counted in that property tax amount. So for general fund, there is a fund use balance of $520,350. This calculates to that one-time transfer to the police capital for police vehicles. So if we did not have that in there, it would be a balanced budget, putting money into fund balance. For general fund, compared to fiscal year 24, there was a decrease in revenues of about 10%. A lot of that has to do with ARPA, but also sales tax. And then there was a decrease in expenditures of 28% compared to last year. That has to do with urban renewal projects, and then also one-time capital that was removed to capital funds. In the general fund, there are 12 new positions, 2 in building department, 1 in fire, 5 in police, 2 in facilities, and 1 in finance that's going to be housed in police. That's the accounting specialist. Since the last meeting, the only 2 things that were added to the budget or changed in the budget was the fire pay that was brought up at the last workshop, and then the foregone in revenue to police and fire. Within this budget, compared to last year, we have 3 new funds that I just want to highlight because I didn't really talk about this in the budget workshop. So there's the parking fund, which I feel that we have gone over a little bit. But there's the 2024 general obligation fire bond. So when we have bond proceeds or when we levy for the bond, we have to have it in a separate fund. So all expenditures will be in this fund. So you'll see both revenues and expenditures. And then the transportation impact fee fund, though this fee has not become before the council yet for approval, it is estimated to come, the current impact fee committee is working on it, and it's estimated to come before the end of this fiscal year, or the end of this calendar year, which will be within the fiscal year 25. So there are only revenues that are estimated, so that we don't have to do a budget amendment and come back for those revenues. I just want to talk about use of fund balance because on the ordinance as well as the paper, it kind of lumps fund balance all into one number, which is over 30 million. But it's really by fund, and so you can see in general fund, like I said, it's that $520,350. Street fund, there's a $11 million use of fund balance, and that's for capital projects, which are all one time. Parks and Rec is at $252,51,000, which is for a one-time project. The fire bond, which is always going to use fund balance as we are using bond proceeds. The park impact fund, which is for a capital project, and we do have significant fund balance in there to use that. The water project, or water fund, which is for capital projects. Same with the sewer fund and the electrical fund. So I just want to bring that to your attention. There's many reasons why we would use fund balance, and these are all planned uses of fund balance. And I know this is a little small. This is kind of a breakout of all the different funds within the city. And so you can kind of see the bottom is the general fund is at the bottom. So between all of our funds, there's a good breakout between all of them. This report can also be found online in our budget book, so. And that's kind of the handout that I gave you. I wanted to just bring your attention to it because we kind of split general fund into four separate portions. There's all the top portion is all the general departments excluding police and fire. And then there's police and fire, and then there's all the fee revenue down at the bottom. So you can kind of see the breakout of revenue and expenditure on all of the different department breakouts. As you can tell, there's an excess under the general funds, but police and fire are both in the negative, even with foregone. And what will happen is within the general fund, we will do transfers to help police and fire stay whole. So that is all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, questions for Lynn, Councilor Register.
Hello. Thank you, first of all, for all the work that you've put into this. I know you and Rochelle are kind of a two-man show, so it must be it's a lot of work. And I also appreciate you starting this earlier in the year and then having that one meeting where we kind of went over everything. So I think that really helped. But I have a question about the parking fund. We know that we're projecting a loss next year on the meters. But just so I'm clear, I'm looking at this as an expenditure of $445,189, but also that matches the revenue on this sheet that I'm looking at. So I'm just kind of curious what that means.
So what I have budgeted within the fund is revenues that Car Park would receive, and then the expenditures that Car Park would expend, essentially. So those are what I have budgeted. There are other sources of revenue, but I don't have a great history to be able to, I mean, within the last 3 months, we've brought in $500 in code enforcement parking fees, so.
But so I guess the question then, the expenditure of 445 is what it is based on whatever their fees are. So we're going to be putting that out plus whatever we don't make, and that's going to come out of the general fund?
Yes, that's why I have that transfer of the 32,000. It's, unfortunately, that's a total for the year, and so month to month, if 1 month is worse or 1 month is better, that fund balance can really adjust month to month.
Do they give you a monthly update?
I have gotten 2 monthly updates, May and June so far.
Okay, so they're not coming to you every month and giving you?
They should, yeah.
Okay. And then I have a question for our attorney. Reference things like the parking fund, things that we're budgeting for, like that, like we had with VRT. I just want to be sure on record that even if we budget for it, if we decide, like say we decide not to continue the parking meters, that we are not entering into any kind of agreement or assumed agreement or anything like that because it's in the budget.
Mayor and Council Register, thank you. I would agree with your assessment on that. Just because it's budgeted does not mean it's an obligation for that money to be spent on that particular item, and that goes for anything generally on the budget as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Stanek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Raylene, first of all, do you think we could have a copy of your bullet point presentation that you gave to us?
This one, or?
Yeah, the first,
Yeah.
what you started out with?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, and let's see. The second question I had, on the discussion that we had last night on the airport, the 400,000, and I think it was 66,000 that we delayed until the next council meeting, Is that incorporated into this, or is that over and above this?
Yeah, those are both fiscal '24 budget items, and so they would not be included in this fiscal
Okay,
'25
so they're
budget.
not in here at all then, right?
that is
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Counselor Elgood.
Yeah, I have some random questions here, Raylene. But first one, as the budget as you've presented, if everything goes as you presented, we've had the discussion in prior budget meetings. Where does that leave our fund balance as you expect for the year? What percentage do you think we'll be at?
Yeah, let me pull that up. It is right at that 30% mark, is where we're trending at. It's right above it with the projects that we're looking at with the fund balance projects. We're going to be right above that 30% reserve mark.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And this is just an odd question, but, you know, as everybody knows, we're self-insured to a point. Do you have any idea if we were to increase our share of that? Last I knew, we were self-insured to the first 75,000. If we were saying self-insured to 100,000, does that decrease our health costs any, or do they not care for that? Or how does that work?
So we look at the that's the stop loss is what that is, and we review that every year. We actually did just adjust that within the health trust. So we are looking to, and I can't recall it off we increased it by 30,000. So it was at 125, and I believe we increased it to 150 to make sure the cost stayed lower, but the liability was still less. So,
okay.
so as health trustees, we review that contract every year to make sure that we have the insurance, the self-insurance, to make sure we can cover the liability, but that we're not overpaying for that liability, that insurance, I guess.
Gotcha, I appreciate that. That's one I've been thinking about for a while. I'm glad to hear that. And then this is one you and I just emailed about back and forth, and we've got some fire service people here, so maybe they can. I noticed when I was doing the finance that we pay a quarterly payment to the ambulance district for something, and I'm not sure what exactly that is. Did you have any other information on that?
Do you want to answer it, Chief? Sure. I did get a response from the chief, but it might be best for him to.
Great question, Council and Mayor. That is a quality improvement program that the county paramedics or Kenyon County paramedics administers for us. They do case review, continuous quality improvement, chart review, and some education.
So they review actions the firefighters take in the field and say, this was good, maybe you should do this, or is that, am I interpreting that right?
Correct, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, perfect, thank you.
All right.
I saw that, I just didn't recognize
no
it.
problem. That's all.
Very good. Any other questions for Elaine at this time? Okay, I do not see any, so we will move into our public hearing portion. Do we have right there, if I just look to my right. Okay, so we have one person signed up to speak, and that is in neutral, Jean. If you could please come forward, and if you could state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes for your testimony.
Jean Kreitbring. Before I begin, I want to personally thank Councilor Stodic for the analogy presented at the July 30th budget workshop. You are spot on that we need more in the trenches, not more in the headshed. Caldwell has added too many high-level positions. The face of Caldwell is represented by the workers at the front counters, on the mowers, working the streets, beautifying our parks, interacting with the public, not by the administration behind a desk. In listening to the final budget workshop and watching various council meetings, it is apparent that spending has been reined in, thank goodness. Also, it is good to hear various councilors speak about the need for better communication and true transparency to make informed decisions. Many thanks to those councilors that put effort and time into choosing what is in the best interest for our citizens as well as the city. It is truly appreciated. On your website concerning City of Caldwell finance policy, under fees and charges, it says, park recreation programs will be partially funded by A, user charges. That is the grammar used. User charges shall be comparable to other neighboring cities where practical. And it also says, the city will consider market rates and charges levied by other municipalities for like services in establishing rates, fees, and charges. According to the U.S. Census, the value of an owner-occupied house in Meridian is $425,000, and the median household income is $93,296. For Nampa, the value of an owner-occupied house is $289,400, and the median household income is $67,346. Moving on to Boise, the value of an owner-occupied house is $401,800, and the median household income is $76,402. Eagle's value of an owner-occupied house is $637,600, and their median household income is $114,271. The one city with the current boom is Star. Their value of an owner-occupied house is $449,700, and the median household income is $88,625. Where's Caldwell? Lower than all those municipalities. The value of an owner-occupied house is $284,000, and the median household income is $65,259. You are going to look at Meridian, Star, Eagle, Nampa, and Boise for their rates and fees? Caldwell is the lowest. That's like comparing apples to oranges. You cannot expect the citizens of Caldwell to pay rates comparable to all those cities. They do not have the financial means. I'm beating the same drum. Stop trying to be like Meridian, Star, Boise, or Eagle. It's not meant for Caldwell. You cannot look at those municipalities and expect citizens of Caldwell to pay their comparable rates. My next question, parking compliance officer, is that for downtown? Who monitors the parking meter violations, and where is that in the budget? Moving on to the parking meters, according to the budget, parking expenses are $445,189. Revenue projections are $445,199 with a $32,700 interfund transferred in. Doing my math, there are 8,766 hours in a year. Without subtracting for holidays, right now, paid parking is enforced 2,964 hours per year. That could change after next week's parking meter workshop. Concerning the revenue, at the present hourly enforcement, the city needs to take in a little over $150 per hour to meet the expenses. Are you currently receiving this type of revenue? Word on the street is no. Next is the Gulf Fund description. On your site it says, we offer some of the best rates in the valley with well-maintained courses. In the final budget workshop, Raylyn stated that she hasn't adjusted the fees presented by the former Gulf Pro. But in the original budget workshop in May for the Gulf Fund, the former Pro clearly stated on record that he had no input on the budget. Just exactly who came up with these projections and possible increases in rates. For the proposed budget, Green's fees at Purple Sage revenues show a 14% increase. Fairview Green fees revenues show a 13% increase. Similarly, Cart Rental shows a 14% increase. I want to know the rate increases. Using those figures, that means fees are going up a minimum of 10%. Not good. When are those being divulged? There are already people talking about abandoning ship if you gouge the users, especially your Caldwell citizen base. According to GolfPGAChampionship.com, municipal courses are typically owned and operated by a municipality, such as a city or town, and offer affordable rates to the public. So thinking about what I referenced earlier concerning Caldwell's median household income, how are you going to keep our municipal rates affordable?
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Jean? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, as mentioned, you was the only one that did sign up. Is there anybody else that would like to provide any testimony on this matter or input? Okay, very good. Then that turns it back to council. So again, we do have, apologize. So what was that, Debbie?
Move to close the public hearing?
Yes, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Doty to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. So that moves it into consideration, deliberation for the council. Again, this is, the public hearing is held, so this would move us into action item number 2, if I'm not mistaken, for the consideration of this bill and ordinance for the appropriation ordinance for FY 2025 with request to waive the 3 reading rule pursuant to Idaho Code 50-902 and move for its passage by title only. So that item is before council for your
Mr. Mayor?
discussion. Yes, Councilor
If
Doty.
there isn't any discussion, clearly, this is a large topic, but we've had several budget meetings on it, so I just want that to be known that we're not rushing through this, that we had at least 5, I think, meetings on the budget. So I'm ready to make the motion if council doesn't have any comments.
You're more than welcome to make a motion at any
All right,
time.
here we go. I'll make the motion to move to waive the 3 reading rule pursuant to Idaho Code 50-902 and approve the passage of bill number 64, ordinance number 3625 by title only.
Very good. So we do have a motion for passage of Bill 64, ordinance 3625. Do we have a second?
Second.
So it's a motion from Councilor Doty with a second from Councilor Stoddard. Discussion on that motion? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, maybe a couple. Again, I want to thank all of Raylene and her staff. A lot of hard work from a lot of different people went into this, all of the department heads. I especially want to appreciate the council and the work that was done. I know, as was pointed out by our one speaker, the council did a lot of work to carve out over $1 million in this budget, and we were able to get there. I've said from the beginning that I had some reservations and restrictions, and even many times said I intended to vote no on this budget. However, today as we come to it, because of these adjustments that we've been able to make with the council's hard work, I am prepared to hold my nose with some of the things that still stink in here and proceed with a yes vote. I'm still not happy with the number of new positions we're adding every year, but I do appreciate the work and the efforts that have gone into this, and so that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion, Councilor Stoddard? Or
Yeah, I wanted to thank Raylene too and all the folks that work with her. I know she knows I'm not a proponent of foregone revenue, and I hope that through the year that we can maybe cut that down a little bit. We can always cut it down, but we can't add, obviously. But I hope all departments will keep that in mind too, and maybe, Mr. Mayor, you can lead the charge on that, recommending that if there's any place we can cut to diminish that money, that would be great, and I think our taxpayers would appreciate it too. So, thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate those comments. Any other discussion on that motion? Okay, then with that, the voting is open at this time. Maybe, there we go. Now it's going. At least one. So. Okay, all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion does pass unanimously, and that does approve the appropriation ordinance for FY 2025. So we do have one more item. So in regards to the foregone that was mentioned, that does require a separate action on that. Anything to add in regards to that, Raylene, before we move forward on that, or any questions for Raylene? Again, this is Resolution 26124, certifying the levy of 1% of the city's foregone balance in the amount of $290,000 to be included in the FY 25 budget, specifically for maintenance and operations of police and fire department.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Doty.
And I would just like to echo a little bit of what Councilor Stoddard said, but not only with foregone, we should be looking at that all the time in the budget, anywhere that we can save taxpayers' money. I think as well as it sounds like we're going to be getting more updates more often. I believe we've asked Raylene for just a little bit more work, Raylene, and so that we can take charge of that, and same thing, any expenses over $50,000 still comes back in front of council so that we can ensure the budget is solid before spending that amount of money. So, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 26124 as presented, certifying the levy 1% of the city's foregone balance in the amount of $290,000 in fiscal year 2025 budget, specifically for maintenance and operations of police and fire department budgets.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Counselor Doty with a second from Counselor Stodic for approval of resolution number 261-24. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, with that, the voting is open at this time. Now that the buttons are all warmed up. So voting is closed as all votes have been cast, and that passes unanimously as well. And that are the only items that we had on this special city council meeting. As mentioned, this was required due to the notification sent out. And again, just echo the sentiment of the council, that we have taken many hours, many meetings in reviewing this, and this is just kind of the cherry on top to finish it off. And I also want to give a big shout out to Raylene, to Rochelle, to their entire departments and staff for the tireless effort, blood, sweat, and tears, literally, on this, getting through this. So grateful for all of their work on that, and to have this completed is a huge accomplishment and achievement for the city. So thank you so much for that. And that is all we have for this evening. So with that, we stand adjourned.
That might be the fastest one ever.